Go ahead and find the book of Jude.
Don't worry about it.
Brother Boston, give me a little more game. Book of Jude, when you find it, please stand for reading. Begin in verse 16. Verse 16. Everybody there?
Amen.
All right. I'll be reading from the New King James. These are grumblers, complainers, walking according to their own lust. And they mouth great swelling words, flattering people to gain advantage. But you, beloved, remember the words which were spoken before by the apostles of our Lord Jesus Christ, how they told you that there would be mockers in the last times who would walk according to their own ungodly lust. These are sensual persons who cause divisions, not having the Spirit. Amen. Amen. Seated. All right, as I told you on last time, that as we were going through Jude, and Jude began to describe these false teachers. And he said they had gone the way of Cain. So last time we looked at how he expounded upon what was going on with Cain. And now we're going to look at the error of Balaam. He uses that to describe them. Now, Balaam may not be a well-known person to you in the Old Testament. However, there's quite a bit of information in the book of Numbers. Chapters 22 through about 24, 25 have a lot to say about Balaam. So this is what you need to know. Balaam was not an Israelite, but Balaam was actually a prophet of God. He was a real prophet. God actually talked to Balaam, which was kind of unusual because normally when you see the prophets in the Old Testament, they are Israelites. But Balaam was not an Israelite. Balaam was, I guess you could say, just a very gifted guy when it came to the fact that he had this ability to prophesy. And you'll find when you read about him, he always said what God told him to say. But what happened with Balaam that was very interesting is one night while he was asleep, God began to speak to him and said, some men are going to come and they're going to take you. And I want you to go ahead and go with them. But when you go, you say whatever I tell you to say. Balaam got up the next day and he got on his donkey and he started off down the road to see Balak. Now, Balak was king of the Moabites. What you got to understand about that is, if you'll remember, the Moabites were related to the Israelites because of Lot and Abraham. Lot's daughters had an incestuous relationship with him, and they had Ammon and Moab. Those were the two sons. So the Ammonites and the Moabites were the people that came from that. Now the Israelites had just defeated the Ammonites, and the Moabites were now afraid of the Israelites. The king had gone up to a high place and looked at the Israelites coming in, and when he saw how many there was, he said, man, there's too many folks. Somebody go get Balaam and have Balaam come to me, because I want Balaam to curse the Israelites. So Balaam is on his way to see Balak. And on his way on his donkey, the donkey sees the angel of the Lord standing in the way. And the donkey stops. And Balaam beats the donkey. And after the third beating, the donkey turned around and talked to him. And asked him, "What's up, man? Why are you beating me?" I guess the donkey said, "Can't you see what I see?" But Balaam had a conversation with the donkey. The donkey had to tell him, "Look, long as we've been together, have I ever not done what you've asked me to do?" And Balaam said, "Well, no." The donkey said, "Well, I think maybe you better listen to what I got to say." And about that time, Balaam's eyes were open. He sees the angel of the Lord standing there. And when he sees the angel with the sword drawn, he says, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'll go back." The angel said, No. You're going to go. But when you go, you tell them only what God tells you to say. So I guess Balaam said, "I got it. I get the hint. I understand." So he goes, and Balak begins to bribe him. 4 separate times, he'd take him to another place and say, "Now maybe from up here you can curse." And every time he opened his mouth, he said exactly what God told him to. And that should have been the end of the story. Because it would have been, Balaam was a prophet who did what God told him to do. But when you get to the end of the Bible, when you get to the book of Revelation, when you get to the 2nd chapter, and talking to the church of compromise, Jesus had this to say that John wrote, in verse 14, "But I have a few things against you, because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam." Doctrine of Balaam. Wait a minute. When I went back and read, Balaam was just saying what thus said the Lord. But he says, "Who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality." Balaam's error was not his prophesying, it was his teaching. He taught Balak how to get the Israelites to become immoral and stumble into idolatry. Because what ended up happening was the Israelites began to mess around with the Moabites, and then the next thing you know, they were bowing down to their gods. And this was done through teaching. So the error of Balaam was the fact that after Balak had paid him all of that money and given him all of that stuff, that Balaam said, I kind of like what I'm getting. I'm going to say what God says, but I'm going to teach you something else. So here's the error. And this is where it gets deep when we look at false teachers. 90% of what they say is correct in most cases. It's that last 10% where they put a twist in that'll have you going the wrong way. Let me see if I can give you an example of how that works. When we look at the Bible, the proper way to exegete Scripture is by observation, interpretation, and then application. Observation means, what does it say? It's simply reading it. False teachers can read it. What does it say? For example, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Y'all know that scripture? Yes. Really simple scripture. And now, what does it say? What it said? In actuality, it says, "For God so loved the world." The interpretation of that scripture has to do with what was going on at the time that Jesus said it, when his whole conversation that he had with Nicodemus, and all of this coming down to Nicodemus saying, how can this be? How does this work? How does this salvation thing work? And he says, "Let me help you out. For God so loved the world." And what he was saying to him was this. He was saying that the love of God, see, that's what that scripture is actually about. We look at it as if it's all about redemption, but it's explaining to us the love of God. For God so loved the world that he gave. Now the false teacher takes that, and I've seen this done, and then they say, "For God so loves the world," and you're in the world. See, it's the application piece where they get you, and see that God gave, and because God gives to those whom he loves, you got to be in a position of receiving what he's given. that's a bad application. Because the next thing they say is, you got to get in position, and how you get in position is you got to let go so you can receive. Let go of what? Your money. See how that works? All of that wonderful scholarship to get to the point of telling you, give up your money. That's what false teachers do. And because they're so good at it, it's difficult. It's difficult to spot them. Today, when we understand the error of Balaam, what we're going to see is we're going to be able to spot the false teacher. And then I'm going to give you something else to help you to understand that because you are saved, God wouldn't let you sit up under a false teacher. All right, now hopefully I'll be able to show you that too. So, first of all, so we get to the 16th verse. And we're going to get a devilish description of the false teacher. It's a devilish description, and you'll see why. It says, these are grumblers. Now, these that's a pronoun. And the actual noun of the sentence is the word grumblers. It's not a verb, it's a noun. A noun describes a person, place, or thing. And here it describes a person, or persons, plural. These are grumblers. There's an adjective in here that describes the grumblers. It's the word complainers. So, let's see. I and my wife, last weekend, we were in Austin. And we were hanging out with some of the parents who had children down there as well with Trinity and what they were doing. And we got to go to the movies with a couple, and we saw the movie Fences. Right? Great movie. Great movie. But what struck me as I was doing this, Fences came to my mind because there's this actor in Fences that, well, you know, you women have something for him. I don't know. You got something for him. But I was, as we were watching it, it occurred to me that he's been in approximately 300 movies in his career. He starred in approximately over 200 movies. And I started thinking about some of his more memorable performances. And I'm like, man, he can change himself. And I thought about Fences. I thought about Hurricane. I thought about Malcolm X. And I said, Denzel Washington is really good at acting. And I remembered specifically from Hurricane that what he did in order to get into that role, it was a movie about a boxer who was unlawfully put in prison. What he did was he stayed in prison for 30 days himself inside of a cell just to know what it felt like. Just so he could change himself from the Denzel Washington that he is at home, that none of us know, into this person on the screen who becomes somebody else completely. I'm like, actors are something else. And what I see here in verse 16 is the first thing is, this is what we don't know. This is what's not seen by people when it comes to false teachers. They're grumblers and complainers. Literally in the Greek, it literally means to be a complainer, someone who out loud mumbles, finds fault. If you go to the previous verse, you understand that when it talks about the sinful ones that speak against God, this is the connection. They find fault with God. They grumble and complain about God. They literally say it. God this, God that. But we don't ever see it. Because the false teacher can put on another face. The false teacher doesn't show up and you look at him and go, there's a liar. You don't see that. They're like Denzel. They got skills. So then he says, walking according to their own lust. Now, this is the other part that you don't see. What's motivating them? Because what's motivating them, walking literally means, how do they live? What is it that they live their life by? Their own lust. What's lust? Lust is a legitimate desire that is being used in an illegitimate way. I want y'all to catch this. Lust is a legitimate desire that's being used in an illegitimate way. I mean, you need food and you can eat. You can be hungry. It's legitimate to eat. It's legitimate to desire to eat. But it's wrong when you eat too much. That's a lust. When it becomes a lust, it's when you take something legitimate and make it illegitimate. So they walk according to their own lust, meaning they have fleshly desires that are legitimate, but they've turned them into illegitimate things because they're willing to do anything to satisfy the desire. And then, oh, by the way, they don't just want to satisfy the desire, they want to feed it. They want to keep on going after it. So what's driving them is a desire to satisfy their flesh. So let me tell you how that kind of works. Last night I saw a thing on television. I think it was last night or it was the night before. I think it was last night. But about the whole problem with the painkillers and this opiate addiction that everyone is going through. And they were going to these cities in Virginia and I think out in Washington. Yeah, West Virginia. And these people were being hooked on painkillers. Hooked to the point to where they were literally out in the street, robbing and stealing. And how all these doctors were writing these prescriptions for all of these pills. I mean, one small city had 9 million pills sent to it in a 3-year period. I'm like, 9 million pills? And I'm like, what's going on here? And it hit me. The painkiller felt good. So the person then desires more of the painkiller. Ain't no more pain, by the way. Right? It's just more of it. Let me tell you about your flesh. Your flesh has a desire, and when you feed the desire, that desire will come back again. But what you'll find is because you fed the desire, you get a certain feeling from feeding that desire, and then you start desiring that feeling. Even if you don't have a fleshly desire for it. So now what you do is you train your flesh to ask for more and more and more. And what the false teacher has done is figured out a way to feed my flesh is to come into a church environment, put on a literal another face, to become an actor, and to stand before people, twist God's word. I'm going to get 90% of it right, but then I'm going to twist that last 10% to take from you what I can to put in my pocket. And why am I doing it? Because my flesh says it's got to have something.